Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this toddler poncho here. Now I don't have a lot of room, but let me move up my camera so you can see it. This is what it's going to look like. It's a 4-point poncho with the fringe and the pom-poms. Of course you can leave the fringe and the pom-poms off if you like. But that's what it looks like. Now it's toddler, and this will fit sizes approximately 3 to 6. So some people ask me what that means. It means the average size 3-year-old to the average size 6-year-old. This will probably fit. If you're Evelyn is almost 3, and you see the picture of her on it. I tried it on my son Eli, who is 5.5, and it fits him quite well too. Maybe if I would have added another row or so, just to make it a little bit longer, but otherwise it fit him pretty good. So I would say average size 3 to 6 toddler. So let's go ahead and get started on it. Okay, for this project I used a Red Heart Dreamy Stripes, which is a 100% acrylic. I like Dreamy, even though it's acrylic. It is kind of like woolly looking, but there's no wool in it. It's a nice yarn. Now it's classified as a bulky 5. I would not myself say that it was a bulky 5. I think it's more like a medium 4. So you don't have to use this yarn. I'm going to say any 4 weight will work, or any thin bulky 5. You know how some bulky 5s are thicker than others. As long as you get a thin one, it'll work good. Or any 4 weight, it will work also. There are, see if I can find it. I always fumble around on this part. 355 yards in one of these skeins. And this was my second skein with putting the fringe and everything on it. And this is all that I have left. There's probably about 50 yards left in there. If that gives you an idea of what you need. So if I guessed, I would say approximately 650 yards. You know, that's just a guess. And then the color I am using is called Ethereal. It's the pink and purple stripes. So yeah, Evelyn picked her own yarn, so this is what she chose. But remember, you don't have to use this. I believe any 4 weight will work in any thin bulky 5. And then I used a size H, which is a 5mm crochet hook. Now you can always try to go up to like 5.5 or 6 and make it longer than what I say, and it would probably fit a bigger child. Now I'm not going to say 100% because I didn't try it, but the odds would be for you that it would probably work out. But like I'm saying, not 100%. And also, I just want to ask you not to forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you look in the description box of this video or any video, you'll see an auto subscribe link. Just go ahead and click on that and you'll automatically be subscribed, and you'll never miss any of my updates. Okay, you want to start off with a chain of 56. Now once you get your chain of 56 made, you want to follow it down without twisting your chain. Slip stitch into the first stitch to form one larger ring. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to work right back into that same stitch here that I just slip stitched into. I'm going to do a single crochet. Now I'm going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around my ring. Just like that. 1 single every stitch until you get back to the beginning. Okay, once you make it to the end of round 1, you should have 56 stitches. So you want to go ahead and slip stitch into your first single crochet. Not the chain 1 that we did, but the first single crochet. And that'll end round 1. Now for round 2, I'm going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. working right back here in the same stitch that we slip stitched into, I'm going to put one of the points of the poncho. So I'm going to go right back into it, and I'm going to work 2 double crochets. And then I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to go back into that same spot again and work 2 more double crochets. And that is how the points are formed. Just like that. Now I'm going to put 1 double crochet into each of the next 13 stitches. 1 double crochet into the next 13. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've done 13 double crochets in a row, and now I'm going to form the second point of the poncho. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, and I'm going to work 2 double crochets. Chain 2, and into the same stitch 2 more double crochets. Just like that. And now again, I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the next 13 stitches. Okay, I've done 13 double crochets in a row again. So I'm going to form my third point the same way into the next stitch. It's going to be 2 double crochets. Oops. A chain of 2 and 2 more doubles all into the same stitch. And again, after that, 1 double crochet into the next 13 stitches. Okay, I did my 13 stitches again. Now we're going to form the fourth and final point into the next stitch. So it's going to get 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets. And now you should have 13 stitches that remain. Go ahead and put 1 double crochet into the last 13 stitches. Okay, I did my final 13 stitches, and you want to go ahead and end around 2 by slip stitching into your first double crochet, like that. And now you should have a total of 68 stitches. If you see right now, you got like a little square. So you'll have 17 stitches now in between each of your chain 2 spaces. So 68 total. So round 2. Okay, now we're going to slip stitch 2 times to get to our first chain 2 space. So there's 1 and there's 2. Now we're going to be working clusters. So we're going to start with a chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. It does not count as anything. So we're going to work a cluster right through this chain space here. So what we're going to do is yarn over, go into the space, drop a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops on our hook. We want to do that 3 times total. So that counts as number 1. Again, yarn over, go into the same space, drop a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. So that's 2 times. One more time, yarn over, go in, drop a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. You'll have 4 loops that remain on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 4. And since we're in the point, we're going to do a chain of 2 like that. Now we're going to do another cluster into the same chain 2 space. So we're going to yarn over and go in, drop a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. You want to do that 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 loops that remain. Yarn over and go through all 4. This time we just chain 1. So we got our point made with our clusters. Now we're going to skip 1 stitch and cluster into the next. Now you need to make sure right here, it's the important part, this is a stitch right here. Sometimes it gets hidden underneath these clusters, so make sure you pull it out and you see it, because you got to skip that one. So we're going to skip this stitch and go into the next and do a cluster. Like that. And then we're going to chain 1. Again, we're going to skip 1 stitch and cluster into the next. So skip this one, cluster into the next. And chain 1. Skip 1 stitch, skip, cluster into the next. And chain 1. So we're just going to repeat this pattern, skip 1, cluster, then chain 1. Skip 1, cluster, and chain 1 until we get to our next chain 2 space. Okay, I've made it to my next chain 2 space. I did a cluster, I chained 1, and I have 1 stitch left to skip, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it, and then in the chain 2 space I'm going to work 1 cluster, since I'm in my point or my chain 2 space, I'm going to work chain 2, and then I'm going to go back into the same spot and work another cluster. And then I'm just going to chain 1 after that. So now I'm going to kind of repeat what I just did all the way around. So I want to make sure and pull that back and skip that first stitch and cluster into the next. And chain 1. Skip 1 stitch, cluster into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, cluster, pink is pretty. Chain 1, skip 1, and cluster. And I'm going to repeat that to my next chain 2 space again. Okay, I made it to my next chain 2 space. I did my cluster, my chain 1. I have 1 left to skip. So I'm going to go into the chain 2 space and work my cluster. Chain 2, since we're in the chain or in the point, and then another cluster. And then just chain 1 after that, and then we're going to repeat again, starting out by skipping that very first stitch and cluster into the next. So I'm just going to repeat this pattern all the way around back to my starting point. Okay, I'm coming around to the end of round 3. Okay, I did a cluster. Now right here is where we slip stitch, and it's going to be kind of hard to see where your cluster needs to go, but you need to skip this one, and right here is where the cluster needs to go, and then you'll skip this last one. And it is a slip stitch, so it'll be kind of hard to go into it, but do the best that you can. I kind of just going to go down like that and do your cluster. Chain 1, and then you'll have that last one there to skip. Go ahead and end with the slip stitch into the top of your first cluster. Like that. And now what you'll have is 40 clusters. Okay, so for round 4, we're going to slip stitch right over to our first chain 2 space one time. We're going to chain 1. Now we're going to go right back into this chain 2 space, and we're going to work 2 double crochets, a chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets. Just like that. Now I'm going to work 1 double crochet in the top of every cluster and into every chain 1 space all the way down until I get to my next chain 2 space, or to my next point. So 1 right here in top of the cluster, and double crochet in the chain 2 or in the chain 1 space between the clusters. And then on top of the cluster, and then in the chain 1 space right in between the clusters. On top of the cluster, and then the chain 1 space between. And I'm going to do this until I get to my next chain 2 space. Okay, I've made it to my next chain 2 space here. Go ahead and put 2 double crochets, chain of 2, and 2 more double crochets, all into that chain 2 space. And now I'm going to repeat it again, what I just did. 1 double crochet in top of every cluster and in every chain 1 space between every cluster. Until I get to my next chain 2 space. Okay, I made it to my next chain 2 space. Right through the space, I'm going to work 2 doubles, chain 2, and 2 more doubles. Now I'm going to repeat this same pattern that we've been doing all the way around back to the beginning. 1 double crochet in the top of every cluster and in every chain 1 space. Okay, I'm coming to the end here, and here's where we slip stitch, but you want to make sure you go into that. It's on top. That last stitch is on top of that cluster. Now you want to go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first double crochet, and that will end round 4, and you should have a total of 92 stitches now, and that's what it's kind of looking like. So now all it is a repeat of rows 3 and 4. So we'll do the cluster row and then the double crochet row, cluster row and the double crochet row. So we just remember to start the cluster row, we got to slip stitch 2 times, chain 1, then we do our cluster, chain 2, cluster, then we chain 1, skip 1, cluster, chain 1, skip 1, cluster, do that same pattern all the way around, and then we do our double crochet row, cluster row, double row, cluster row, double row. Now every time from now on you do a row of cluster stitches around of them, you'll have 12 more clusters than you did the previous cluster round. And every time you do a double crochet row, you'll have 24 more double crochets than you did the previous double crochet row. Okay, I went ahead and done a total of 14 rounds, and that's counting that very first row of single crochet. Now it kind of looks flared out a bit, and that's fine. It's going to look like that. Now I'm going to add some edging. So your last row should have been the row of double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch 2 times to my first chain 2 space. And then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to go back into the space and work my 2 doubles. Chain of 2 and 2 more doubles. Like that. Now what I'm going to do is work a front post double crochet around the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, go right around it, and work a front post double crochet. Like that. Now I'm going to put a regular double crochet into the top of the next stitch. And then I'm going to put a front post double crochet into the top of the neck, or around the post of the next stitch. And then I'm going to do a regular double crochet into the top of the next. Front post double crochet in the next, and then regular double crochet into the top of the next. And that's the repeat. I'm going to repeat until I get to my next chain 2 space. Front post double crochet, and then a regular double crochet. Front post double crochet, and then regular double crochet. And it's making these ridges here. So go ahead and repeat that pattern all the way down until you get to your next chain 2 space. Okay, I've made it to my next chain 2 space, my next point. Your last stitch should have been a front post double. So we'll go ahead and right into that chain space and work 2 doubles, chain of 2, and 2 more doubles. Now we're just going to repeat what we just did. So we're going to start out with a front post double crochet into the first stitch, and then a regular double crochet into the next. Front post double crochet and regular double crochet. Front post and regular. And we'll do that until we get to our next chain 2 space, and then we'll just do 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space, and then we'll just keep repeating this same pattern until we get back to the beginning. Okay, I'm coming to the end of round 15. Now there are 2 stitches here. This is where we slip stitch, so you want to make sure that you get both of those. Be a double crochet, and then the last one will be a front post double crochet. And now we're going to end with a slip stitch into our first double crochet here. Now what you'll have is 16 more stitches than you did the previous round. So I'm going to slip stitch again 2 times to my first chain 2 space. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to repeat round 15 again. So I'm going to put 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 doubles. Then I'm going to start off with the front post double crochet, and then a regular double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, which you will see is a front post double crochet from the previous row. So we're just keeping our posts lined up. Regular double crochet, front post double crochet, regular double crochet. And we're just repeating for round 16, we're just repeating row 15. So we're just doing the same thing we did on the previous row or round. And that's creating these posts. Now it's okay if your stitches start to turn up. We'll fix that later at the end. Post stitches tend to do that, so we'll get that all taken care of. So I'm just going to keep working around, repeating the previous round until I get back to the beginning. Okay, I've made it to the end of row 16. And we're going to slip stitch into our first double crochet, and you'll have 16 more stitches than you did the previous row. Now what we're going to do is go around it with a row of single crochet. So I'm just going to chain 1 right here where I'm at. I'm going to go back into that same stitch as single crochet into the next stitch, and then when I get here to this chain 2 space, I'm going to work 4 single crochets into the space, and then I'm going to continue working 1 single crochet in every stitch across. So make sure you get this first stitch, so there's no more front post stitches or anything like that. It's just 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around. When you get to your chain 2 spaces, it's 4 single crochets into each of the 4 chain 2 spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and finish mine up until I get back to the beginning. Okay, I've made it all the way around with my row of single crochet, and you want to go ahead and end with the slip stitch into your first single crochet. You should have 16 more stitches than you did the previous round. I'm going to go ahead and clip that off now. Let's see what she looks like. Looking pretty good. My striping effect got kind of thick in some spots, but that's okay. Okay, now we're going to go around the neck and clean it up. So put the back side of your work facing you. And just go ahead and start in any stitch in the back along the neck here. And all we're going to do is pull through, chain 1, go back in the same stitch and single crochet. And I'm just going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch along the neck. All the way around until I get back to the beginning. Okay, I've made it all the way around the neck there, and you should have 56 stitches because that's what we started with, but you know, just somewhere close to that's okay. It doesn't have to be exact. Go ahead and end with the slip stitch into that first single crochet, and we'll tie that off, hide that tail. Okay, now if you choose to add fringe, which I would, if you like fringe, I'd suggest it. I guess it makes it look a little bit longer, but you can always crochet it longer if you want, but you don't have to add fringe. But if you want to, it's real easy. What I did was I took a couple of strands of yarn. They're probably about 8 inches a piece. And you put the right side of your poncho facing you. And then you go through a stitch, the bottom here. Pull your 2 strands through like that. And then grab this. And then even them up at the bottom, like that. As close as you can get them. And then pull them right through. Just like that. And then again, all I did was skipped 1 stitch in between each strand of fringe. So I go through the next stitch, or skip 1 and go through the next one. Get my 2 strands of yarn and pull it through. Get them even at the bottom and then pull them through the loops. Now you can do more than 2 strands of yarn to make it'll just make your fringe thicker. You can leave more spaces in between. You don't have to put fringe at all. But that's all I do. And then I just trim them up at the end to the length that I want. So that's how I apply the fringe. Okay, for these pom-poms, I'm just going to use these tails from them and a yarn needle. And I'm just going to sew them up here around that single crochet row of the collar. Nothing special. But you can just space them out wherever you want. Just get them about even on either side. And then just take them with your yarn needle. And just sew them on. Maybe if I can get both strands here. There we go. I'll probably put them just wherever you want to put them in. No specific spot, but just try to get it the same on both sides. I'm going to let them dangle a little bit. And then just kind of sew them on. You can determine how far you want them to dangle down. That's up to you. It's kind of like that. And then I would just weave in them tails. So that's it, really. Just nothing special on how to do that. And remember, you don't have to put them on if you don't want to. And if you want to, you can actually make a long string and sew the pom-poms on the end of it and weave it all the way around the collar if you want. That's up to you. But I just sew mine on kind of like that. Okay, now that is it. That's all there is to it. I don't have a lot of space, but that's what she looks like. I hope you enjoy my tutorial. Evelyn seems to like it, so that's all that matters. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to check out all my other tutorials too. I have hundreds of them. And like I said in the beginning, that auto-subscribe links in the description box. Just click on that and you'll never miss any of my updates. So until next time, have a good day.